It's really interesting and often perplexing to talk about Persick's philosophy, especially now that we're reading Lila, and we're getting involved with the four evolutionary levels and how they interact, support, and sometimes are in conflict with each other, and how moral situations are assessed according to which level should take precedence. Usually the higher level should take precedence, but when the lower levels are undermined, they will bug us, just as the uninvestigated shadow of our subconscious hijacks our psyche with unwelcome thoughts, and our behavior with actions that seem out of the blue and far from how we desire to behave. Now, what I'm trying to do with my channel, besides present my attempts to understand Persick's work, sometimes coherently, sometimes bumbling, is to attempt to apply his philosophy to real life. It's a tall order, but I keep trying. A significant phenomenon that has emerged recently as a result, I believe, of more information than we are even remotely capable of processing due to the internet, is an inability to discern what information is valuable, is of quality, and what information not so much. So I'm going to comment on a video I saw about, or a series of videos I saw about how we should approach COVID. And as we all know, much is presented to us about this virus as factual, will later reveal itself to be possibly part of a partisan narrative or is just plain quackery. So as we go forward, we need to be able to discern what information, to the best of our ability, obviously, is valuable to keep us and others safe, both on the biological and social levels, and what isn't. So rationality will play a big part in helping us determine this, but sketchy, motivated, and manipulative facts can enter our rational machinery, and if we believe these facts to be absolutely true, then the system we construct from these facts is going to be off track. So we need to be able to discern what is of quality, and I propose a way to do this these days might be a little less rational and a little bit more instinctive, more from the gut. And I think that the thing to look for when you're listening to information is it coherent? Does the whole package work together and make sense? Or does it make you feel uneasy? So I've looked at a lot of information, and the videos from this channel, Medcram, with Dr. I don't know how to pronounce this, Seholt, I believe to be of high quality, as high quality as I've seen in terms of all this information we have about COVID. And as I listen to it, trying to listen to it from that stance of peace of mind, as Persick says, I suppose you could call that Zen beginner's mind, trying to be as open as possible, I didn't get that queasy sense that this doctor was trying to push a narrative, nor did I get the feeling he was intent on presenting his data as absolute objective truth. I had a felt sense that he was doing his best to keep his ego out of it. Note the way, when you listen to him, that he conveys information in kind of a caring way, but with a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, but without his ego getting in the way. And you're going to sense that. And I think that that's something we, on the social level, as human beings, can sense with other people if they're trying to, push their egoically driven opinion, or if they're just trying to convey information in a truthful way to the best of their ability. So this guy doesn't push any one narrative, and he also presents the air of being comfortable with uncertainty. I think that's a hallmark of quality in situations like this, when you're willing to accept that you don't know everything, that your value system constantly needs to be updated, and to convey to us that he is uncertain about something when it makes sense to do so, and that he's open to whatever information comes up in this ever-changing landscape of knowledge about COVID, and it is ever-changing. So when you look at these videos, you've probably heard bits of this advice in a lot of places, or this information in a lot of places, but the sense is that the way he's consolidated this information, open-ended, of course, is coherent. And I think that coherence you feel when you listen to this is that sense of quality. And this is the kind of way that we might want to start looking and start feeling about information, not that it measures up to some kind, or it parallels with some kind of preconceived notion we have. Just as you're open to it, does it feel right? Does it feel harmonious? Does it feel like it makes sense? And that kind of instinctive approach to information might be something we kind of have to get back, since we can't really tell what is factual anymore. Not just because there's too much information, but also because there are too many motivated narratives circulating. So if you go back to chapter 1 of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, where he says the stream of national consciousness moves faster but less deep, he also mentions in the same paragraph that some channels have been cut too deeply in the past and they don't go anywhere. So how can we apply that to what we know about COVID? Well, a lot of the facts we know about COVID are disparate and confusing, and when we hear them, we feel rattled. And that feeling is one of these bits of information just being too chaotic and too dynamic. And then there are proclamations and assertions by some other clinicians or some other people with strong opinions that convey the sense of it just being too dogmatic, too sure of themselves, too strict, and this is too static. In the video I'm going to link to, and the other videos by this doctor, there's this holistic feeling, and that holistic feeling, I think you could say, is quality. So now I want to segue into something slightly different, but still still making reference to the particular video I've linked to, which is what to do if you get COVID. So this doctor mentions that if you get COVID, you should raise your body temperature through maybe hot baths or through a sauna. And this is something that people used to do. Saunas are, they think saunas are tens of thousands of years old. And even as recently in the 1920s, someone won a Nobel Prize for treating infection by artificially inducing a fever. But this Nobel Prize was quickly forgotten because a few years later, penicillin was invented. And now our problem is penicillin. The overuse of this first order of treatment for bacterial infections is antibiotics. And ironically, the use of antibiotics has become a cultural immune system, the persic term cultural immune system, where all bacterial and unfortunately many viral infections are treated with antibiotics, and other ways of treating infections go by the wayside or forgotten or not even explored. So what is the cultural immune system? Well, let's see what Persic says about it. What he says is, what it always means is that you have hit an invisible wall of prejudice. Nobody on the inside of that wall is ever going to listen to you, not because what you say isn't true, but solely because you have been identified as outside that wall. So like a real immune system, the idea of anything to be used for infection other than antibiotics is rejected. So what happens is that, and they even we try to get rid of fever itself with Tylenol and with aspirin, the exact opposite of what we should be doing. So what happens is that all other ways of treating infections are rejected as primitive, and new ways are not sought because antibiotics are so great. And the rigidity of the system, because it's so rigid, this causes major problems, such as bacterial infections, such as MRSA and other resistant bacteria, not to mention the havoc that this approach wreaks on your microbiome, which is where your whole immune system is anyway, not to mention the operation potentially of your neurochemistry. And therefore, a screwed up microbiome can yield all sorts of mental health issues. So they think. And this system of infection treatment, the antibiotic system, is closed to any dynamic updating from the outside. The only updating that's going to occur in the system is newer antibiotics. It's just some other variation of what's already inside the system. So any transformation at all occurs within the system. Now, I understand that antibiotics are not the treatment for COVID. Like I said, this is kind of a segue. But what I'm trying to show is how a medical breakthrough can become dogmatic. Something as exciting as penicillin, and it was at the time. It was an amazing, amazing thing. But something that dynamic can become, because it's so great, dogmatic, and then reject anything else. And we can also see how an innovation, like the innovation of this Nobel Prize winning physician, that combined the old and new, was squashed in lieu of this next big thing. So the availability of this method to treat infections, and now viral infections are what we're concerned with, has been lost, and that's really quite tragic for us at this point, because we don't think about this as a method of treating infections. We're just looking for the antiviral to be, because the antibiotics work so well. Where is the antiviral? So this doctor is recommending that, indeed, we look at earlier treatments for infection by looking back at other methods that probably were never fully explored. He is doing some channel deepening and updating this closed system that is causing so many problems. He's trying to update it with wisdom from the past. And the old ways of getting rid of bacterial infection can, of course, help with viral infections, such as COVID. Along these lines of combining new dynamic innovation with old wisdom, I'm a big fan of functional medicine. And I think that functional medicine and biohacking are high-quality endeavors that update our approach to our biological level through the exploration of what is actually leading us back to what we needed in our original state before modern medicine. And a lot of these approaches are bringing back old ways of dealing with illness, like the heat treatment. So think about the sweat lodge and the saunas. Like I said, saunas go back tens of thousands of years. And think about he's a bit of a brujo. And look at these guys, the biohackers, the functional medicine people. Look at Wim Hof. Now, if you want to see a brujo, there is a brujo. I'm going to remind you, the brujo is that kind of outlier who has some cockamamie ideas, who actually turns out to be the person who saves the tribe or brings in, his cockamamie ideas are actually very prescient and help solve a problem that the system he's trying to change, which is too rigid, has previously rejects, but then eventually has to concede is useful. So think about Wim Hof, the brujo, and his cold exposure, and how this, and also fasting as another one that comes up with the biohacking and the functional medicine. And all these things replicate small stressors that our ancestors faced naturally. And these stressors are labeled these days as hormesis, which means these small stressors that technology has made obsolete, but in fact made us stronger biologically. So technology has made us too comfortable and therefore too weak, and is diminishing and is undermining our biological level. And remember that Persic says if you allow any of these 4 levels to degrade, they are no longer supportive. And if they are not supportive, then that weakens the dynamic capability, which is the capability for change and evolution of the whole system. Our intellectual level, with all this technology, with all this modern medicine, has made us, has outsourced our immune system to medicine. Our intellectual level has made us biologically weak. And that's not only undermining our health, it's undermining society as we respond to the pandemic with for example, draconian lockdowns. Because we are so unhealthy, we can't weather things like COVID. You have so many modern ailments, such as obesity, such as diabetes, such as lack of vitamin D, all these things that we neglect because we don't need, we can function with all these health problems because medicine keeps the problems at bay. That such a tremendous percentage of the population is on all these diabetes medicine, is on insulin. And these are the people who are succumbing to this virus first, besides people who are of a certain age. So this whole COVID thing is exposing what these brujos, the functional medicine people, the Wim Hofs, the fringe health nuts have been telling us, that now it's time to go back and revisit what was lost, to go deeper. But at the same time, we need to continue to innovate and try to test things as rigorously as possible, despite the fact that time is of essence in this situation. And that obviously means continuing to use science and rational methods to develop new treatments. So I hope you agree with me as to the quality of this advice. And maybe your experience of listening to it will be the same as mine, that you felt like there was a holistic coherence to it. Or maybe not. Maybe you have different experiences and information and temperament, and maybe you will find your quality COVID advice elsewhere. Whatever the case, I hope this made sense, and I will see you next time.